Is it the way it is? Welcome. So the title of the talk is Discover the Space Before Thought. And it sounds very cool and interesting, that's why I picked it. What this space is actually, let's start with how I came to discover this space myself. So about probably, 16 years ago or so, I came out of an abusive marriage. I separated. I had a, back then, almost 2-year-old son. And, you know, my financial situation wasn't good. And soon my house went into foreclosure. So everything was falling apart, right? And the work I had done all my life, I was an engineer before, very successful one, and I couldn't do the work. I would sit there, look at my computer, and it was like the words were Chinese. I couldn't even understand them. Like I would sit there and cry, and people are like, "You're just stressed." I'm like, "It's not stress. I'm telling you, I'm sitting in front of a computer. I can read everything else. But when it comes to my work that I've done, the word, I cannot comprehend what's on the screen." So I said, all right, something's got to stop. I can't do this. Obviously, like everything's going topsy-turvy. I got here somehow, right? And that's when I stopped everything. I stopped what I was doing. I stopped my engineering work. And I said, let's figure out how I got here. And I always was in love with Rumi and his poems, but for the first time I'm like reading these poems and they have a different meaning now. Before they were just poems about love. And then I was like, now it's different. Now it's like, it's taking me inside more. And the more I went inside, the more I discovered why all this was happening. And the reason was, when I was younger, I came from divorced family, and it was one of those divorces that they can write books and movies about. I mean, this was just like drama until I was in my 20s. And I grew up with an abusive dad, and I grew up in an environment that women were less, and women had to be a certain way to, in my head, that, I have to look this way and act this way in order to be loved and accepted. And then to add on top of that, the country went through a revolution. I was in Iran at that point, and the revolution was not a very easy thing if you're little, and back then, my generation, parents were just like, kids are just meant to be there, nobody explains anything to you, just go away, and everybody's dealing with their own stuff. And then there was the war that happened after that. Again, that was a real interesting one. Again, I'm very little, nobody explains anything, there's bombing, we have X's on our windows, and it's like, what is happening right now? So all of that stuff, what did I do? I took all that fear in. I took it in. And I always say, now that I'm older, now that I got to that point, it's like, I think I grew up with PTSD. Like the minute I was born, I had PTSD from everything that was happening around me. So the way I discovered this space was that I had to go inside. Go back to all these different parts of me that were carrying these identities and behaviors that didn't allow me to love myself, that didn't allow me to accept myself. I always said, it's because of this, it's because of that, I grew up this way. But I had to take it in, and that point was take responsibility. Everything in my life is my choosing, is my doing, my choosing. All that I experience is my doing, my choosing. And as soon as I took responsibility, then things start to open up even more. I was able to go more inside, accept everything, forgive myself, forgive everybody, forgive all that generational trauma that was passed down. Forgive, then at some point it was even forgive the male-female roles that we all play. So there was a lot of forgiving and accepting and acknowledging of my life, what these persons were. And then things even opened up more. And how they opened up more was that I saw these characters, these roles that I've played throughout my life. And there's a mom right now. There's the engineer. There's a daughter. And there was two different types of daughters even. I was a certain way with my dad. I was a certain way with my mom. Even when it went to my grandparents, I was a certain way with one of my grandparents, one set, and a different person with another set. Sisters, so all these identities, characters, I start to see them, see the beliefs they were carrying, the ideas they were carrying, all of them, all these thoughts that were going through my head depending on which character I was in and what I was doing. How did I need to protect myself? And all these layers. So when I saw these identities, it's like, none of it is real. This is just like characters I'm playing in this movie, and the movie is not even real. Because everything's changing. The only real thing is here and now, where we are. This is the only real thing. Yesterday, I can't bring whoever I was yesterday here. Whoever I'm going to be in the future, I can't bring here. So all those things that take you out of the present moment, they're not real. They're not you. They're part of these characters that we build over time, that they have their stories, they have their wishes, they have their desires, and what happens? They're all attached to those desires. They want things to happen a certain way, or not happen a way. The fear comes, it's like, I hope this doesn't happen, and because I don't want this to happen, I gotta control every situation, every movement to make sure that doesn't happen. Or I gotta make sure everything is right this way so that that thing that I want happens. But it's not real, it's not present moment. Everything that is past and future is not here. So that space that I'm saying before thought, it is in the here and now. And it gets you to step back from the thought because you're stepping back from those identities and characters, those roles you're playing in your movie, in your life movie, wherever you are. And when you step back, you see it's that space of awareness. You're just present, you just exist. You don't need to be anything else. Your existence just is, it's being. It doesn't have a name. It doesn't have a past. It doesn't have a future. I exist. That's all it is. So, and in that space, all those thoughts sort of quiet down. And also in that space, emotions are allowed to be there because there isn't any judgment. Judgment is the one that comes and says, these are bad emotions, these are good emotions. And so if we've labeled everything good and bad and right and wrong, anything that's wrong, the fear goes up, the anxiety goes up, the sadness goes up. Anything that's good, yes, it's like a job, give it to me, I want more of this. Same thing with good and bad. If it's good, we're happy. If it's bad, it's like, oh, I gotta do something. I gotta fix this. I shouldn't experience this. This is one of those bad ones. All the alarms are going inside. The mind is trying to get you to do something, fix something, move about. But if you just stay here, if you just be willing to not judge your characters, your roles, your thoughts, your emotions. Just step back into the space of just awareness and acceptance. then the emotions can come. And they're there, and they'll go. It's like, I'm sure you've all heard this in different ways. The poems, spiritual guys, everybody said this, but you get to experience this. I am the ocean. The ocean is not worried about the waves. It doesn't say, oh my God, these are big waves. Those are small waves. Give me small waves, not the big ones. It's just ocean. It is existing. And those thoughts, then it's just like these waves on top of the ocean. And they can come and go. You're just that space that things can come and flow in the present moment and leave. The only constant is your existence, is your being. Any questions so far?
Yes. Practitioners are speaking today about clearing negative energy. And I'm having a hard time putting that into this paradigm you just described.
Yeah, because I don't look at energy as negative
How do
or
you
positive.
look at it? Okay.
Because that's a very good question. It takes me, thank you for that. It takes me to the next thing I was going to say. So perfect segue, thank you. I did not pay her.
I didn't hear a question.
So the question is negative. Everybody says I got to clear negative emotions. So I do shamanic healing, I do energy healing, and I do not look at it as negative or bad energy. Everything's energy. We're all energy. And energy, whatever you are supposed to experience in your life, you are going to experience it. Anything that is coming to you is because it's serving a purpose for you to see you and that discover this space, this existence, this being without all these layers. It's trying to mirror you to see you. So if you're judging it, you're constantly, your mind says, that's bad. Again, it goes, it's bad, negative. You gotta clean it. I get calls from people. I got attachments. Can you clear the attachments? They're doing this, that. If there is an attachment, it's trying to show you something. It's there for a purpose. And if you take that fear out of it, because what happens when you say negative energy? What happens when you say attachment? Your fear goes up. If you take the fear out of it and receive everything in your life as a gift, this is a gift. If all those things, at that moment where my ex, I'm grateful to him because I have a high tolerance for pain, let's call it that. I was gonna use another word, but pain. My pain tolerance is very high. It was like that as a kid. With everything that happened, I mean, like you could really pile it on before I would say, ouch. So he had to make my life that much worse for me to say, all right, I'm done. Everything in my life had to be that much higher for me to say, okay, now I stop, I look at myself. And I did. At that point, I found out, oh my God, there was a moment I looked back in the meditation, sitting there, it's like everything lined up. Everything in my life, I could see, yep, if that hadn't happened, this and this, everything lined up for me to do what I do today, to help all those people that come to me today. Without all those things that are, labeled negative, bad, trauma, all those things, I would not be standing today and help so many people. I'm grateful for all of it. And I've learned anything that comes, I receive it as a gift. This is, I've got something in here. Let me see, yes. Show me. Show me what I need to see. And then when I see it, it's not, let me fix it. Oh my God, it's like a, ink on you that you're trying to rub off, dirt on you that you're trying to rub off. You just accept it. Forgive, love, bring it in. I'm the space, remember? I'm the ocean. Everything else is waves. Any other questions? How are we doing on time? We're still doing good. So, one of the main things, I wrote a book, it's won several awards if you guys want, it's out there. It's called Change Yourself, Change the World. And I go through this history of fear that we've had over generations and generations, wherever it started. And that fear and the state of the world we are in right now is because of that separation. But that separation is not a separation that happened for the outside. That separation happened inside first. That separation of us with our truth. That separation of this identity that has judgments and thoughts with that space that I'm talking about, that which is pure, unconditional love, peace, and joy. And everybody has different name for this place. They call it divine, they call it consciousness, higher consciousness, God space, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter. But that is that space of oneness with everything and everyone around you. But what's happened is fear came with this, like I said, remember as a kid, that fear made me have all these identities and characters I played. And the more the fear got more and we separated more and more and more. And that separation has happened between countries, religion, between skin color, everything. And the more we separate, that fear goes higher and higher. Because now I gotta protect myself more and more. I have these characters that they're dependent on their survival. Fear of survival, I'm not gonna survive. If people don't love me and accept me and want me, I'm not gonna survive. If you're an entrepreneur, that's one of the biggest fears. I gotta sell my stuff. And in order to sell my stuff, people have to like me, they have to love me, they have to accept me. And if I don't sell, if I don't make that money, I'm not gonna survive in this world. All those fears and separate. But once you, again, start going in there, awareness first. Awareness is just watching what's happening. It takes a little practice. The more you do it, the easier it gets. It gets bigger and bigger. And then when you go in there, though, you gotta go with love. You gotta go with honesty. You gotta go in without judgment. Because when you go in there without those things, you let it come in. You don't go in with fear. But if you go in there with, I need to fix it, because you're judging it, right? Something's good and bad. If it's bad, I gotta fix it. I gotta clean it. I gotta control it. I gotta get things the way I want. So when you go in that way and look at these characters, what happens? Then there's a war, there's a resistance. And they fight you back. So that's the key. Awareness without judgment. Awareness with acceptance. And then that opens up the doors for forgiveness, acknowledgement, self-love, and everything else starts to flow. And you stop identifying with these characters, with their thoughts, with their emotions. And you start to let go and trust life, trust the flow. Now I can trust because I sat there, it's like everything that happened, I was like, it lined up. It's like I could not plan this myself. It was timed so perfectly. I wouldn't be able to do it. And just to give you another example of that, how that trust and flow works. So it's coming up, I think it was last week. the anniversary of my Achilles rupture. So in 2023, I had my first retreat I was gonna do in Tulum, Mexico. Very exciting. So at retreats before that, I was getting signs for retreats. People were contacting me. I said, okay, fine, I get it. Let me do a retreat. And then locations came, like, yep, Tulum feels good. Let's do Tulum. And as I was planning, organizing these things on Facebook, this lady pops up. I loved her photography. I'm like, I contacted her saying, I love your photography. I just wanted to say hi and just introduce myself. And she loved my work. We started talking, and I told her what I was doing, and she's like, oh, I just came back from Tulum. And she does some breath work and healing work as well. So we hang up, go to bed. I was like, I should see if she wants to come to Tulum. I know she came back, let me just ask her. Next morning, I called her. I said, hey, I'm going, I told you I'm going to Tulum for my retreat. Do you want to come? She's like, oh my God, I was hoping you asked me because last night I was dreaming and I wanted to come. Can I come? I'm like, great, please come. It's my first retreat. I need pictures, come over. So anyway, we're going and it gets close to my trip. The day of the trip, I keep hearing like, she's gonna help you. I'm like, I don't know how she's gonna help me, but okay, let's see what's gonna happen that she's gonna help me. So on the first day, up to when the workshop started, first day, first hour, I fully rupture my Achilles. I jump up in the air, the whole room hears it, pop! And I land on my good foot, and I'm like, yep, I'm done. Luckily, I have no idea how. I had no pain whatsoever. So then I said, this is how she's gonna help me. I said, okay, apparently you're not here to do photos for me. You're here because I cannot move. We still have a whole week here. You're my legs. And I stayed the whole trip, the whole week. I couldn't go on the excursions because I couldn't walk. She was on the excursion. I said, this is what you need to do for this, and just go, be me. And everything came together. That's the trust, that's the flow. If you don't judge everything is good or bad, what would have happened normally in that situation? Oh my God, why does this happen to me? My first day. And this is Tulum, Mexico. So that was a whole other ordeal. On a Sunday, they didn't have hospitals. They didn't have emergency rooms. It was crazy. But everything I needed just came together. And I also saw why there was a reason for me to even stay in the hotel and not move around. There was something about that energy, about the people. They have become a second family. They're like, I cannot say, like, I get invited back to just for visit, and it's like home. And it happened because there was trust. There was acceptance. All right, this is happening. It's a gift. Let's go. You're doing good. Any questions, anything you want me to talk about more? Yes.
Do you mind if I ask another
Of
one?
course. That's what you're here.
I must have some archetype or some persona that's pushing back on what you want us to engage, because I have another negative type question.
Go for it.
Maybe I need to work through it in this way.
Go for it.
There are times when you're in a situation and you are like, this is not for me. Do you get an exit sign? I mean, do you get a sense of, in your before thought space that just says, this is for someone else, this is not for me, and you pull back?
It's not a pulling back. It happens differently. So let me tell you the process. Let me. That's what I'm saying. Let me give you the process, because I was not this that you see today. Okay.
Yeah.
This has taken many years, and that's why I tell my clients, if I can do it, you can do it, because I've gone through to get here. It was not easy. There were times that if somebody came and looked at me, they were like, what is wrong with this lady? Because I was sitting there just like this. And this could go on for like an hour sometimes, because there was just so much fear. And before getting to this space, when it was a choice actually I talk about in my book, choice becomes hard as you're going through this, right? Because we're all right now in our humanness and we gotta make choices. I gotta make a choice to go here or here. Sometimes you can't just wait for that sign, and you can't just wait for that flow. And you are feeling the fear, you are feeling all these energies, and it's like, which way do I get pulled? Which way do I go? And that's when you gotta start practicing that self-love, and you gotta practice a little bit of moving from your heart. Meaning, during those mundane times that there isn't any life or death, your fears are not being triggered, use this technique to find that heart space. And that's when you're eating stuff. You want to eat something, you want to drink something, you get up to want to pick your clothes, your routines, all those things, start to break them. And then, like if you're doing, let's say you're hungry, you want to go eat something. You go open the fridge, you look like, okay, I have an orange, apple, and a banana, let's say. Now, let me pick each one. If it's a physical thing, actually pick it up. Bring it to your heart center. Close your eyes. Go ahead, pick next one. Go ahead, next one. You are going to feel a difference. Close, same thing. Do it. And then when you've done this more, then when those big choices come, you can do the same thing to it. You're going to put it in boxes, not physical boxes, in your minds. I'm putting it in here. And let me take box A. Let me take box B. Let me take box the B one. The B one felt good. What was in B? Oh yeah, B was this choice. But then that choice, if it starts to trigger you, it's like, because your heart knows where you're going to go, but you're like, no way. That is like, all my fears and anxieties just came up now. That's when you say, okay, let me take from the remaining ones, what's the easiest one? What's the one that I can take one step? Because that one step is in the flow still. It's in the trust. I'm doing what's easy, and everything's gonna come. Everything's gonna line up. Because everything's already manifested for you. Everything. We're just finding our way there. Yes?
So you've talked a bunch about the idea of being non-judgmental, awareness with acceptance. So any suggestions on how to be less judgmental? I'm aware of myself of like, oh, these little, like, no, that's bad, that's bad, that's bad, that's good, that's bad, that's okay, right?
So judgment has a funny thing, actually, when you said this. So judgment even causes you to judge the judgment, okay? Isn't that funny? It's like, oh my God, I'm judgmental. I shouldn't be judgmental. I should be less judgmental. So you're already judging the judgment. But the good thing is an awareness. Everything comes to that awareness. Awareness is the first step of everything. And that is, again, I'm tuning in. I always say, tune into your words that you're speaking. Tune into those thoughts that you're saying. And it's okay. You might have gone down an identity. You might have gone down a story. And then you catch yourself like, how did I get here? Oh yeah, I remember now. Let me back out of this character. I'm in awareness now. That's how I got there. So, because everything is about you discovering yourself, your truth, which is, I exist. I am. That is the permanent thing that's always been here and will always be here. Everything else comes and goes. Anything that comes and goes is not that existence, is not that awareness. So you just have to tune in, and again, tune in with self-love. Tune in with love. Any other questions, comments, practices you want? Yes?
So on the space before your thought, when you're, say, just waking up, it's like, does it have a particular feel or color to it that you can kind of describe, like a moment in time that exists but doesn't exist before that first thought comes into your brain when you wake up? Is that may be one of the easier times to develop this or practice this, because it's, before the day started. And it's like, I know I'm awake and I haven't opened my eyes yet. So if you're catching it, I probably am good at catching it then, and I'm sensing you're catching it before then.
That's a perfect question. So that is a perfect time, depending on how you wake up. And you can be in this space at any time of day. So it's not like you have to do it at a certain time. But for you, if that is the perfect time, then in that moment before you're waking up, you haven't really, it's a space you haven't put on any costumes in, right? And in that space, if you can just stay with your breath or your heartbeat and remind yourself, breath is happening on its own. My heartbeat is happening on its own, right? You don't have to do anything. And everything else then comes after that. But if you stay there, it brings you back to your body and a reminder that everything is happening on its own. There is no doing. Because that's the thing with this space. There is no doing. Everything's natural. Everything's flow. It's like when you want to get up and walk, you're not saying, okay, I want to walk to that chair. Come on, arms and legs, let's move. Everything you're doing is natural. It's part of a flow. So those are the times you want to remind yourself about this space. Your body, your heartbeat, your breath is on its own. There is no doing, meaning there is no person, no identity doing anything. It's natural. It's a movement. It's a flow. And if you practice that, everything else, you'll see that flow in it. That is there a person doing it, or is it a natural flow? And it goes back to the question you said. Yes?
Well, I agree with everything you say, and I believe there's antagonistic relationships or situations that come up, and it's great to think, oh, I'm just gonna pause and love it. But I look at it as something that if you don't call it negative, it just is as well. Mm-hmm. And so we don't for me, it's more peaceful to not feel like, oh, I have to love everything or be good with everything.
Perfect.
And just accept, like with my children or something, I don't mean to be antagonistic to them, but just wanting to stay on the phone to ask them one last question, they'll be like, Mom, whatever. Yeah. I can't help but be that to them. And it's their perception, it's not even an intention. And then people are antagonistic to me, my daughters, or what, or y'all, or whoever. So I just think that's the flow as well.
It is.
Just looking at it and saying, wow, isn't that, here it is.
But there's a difference though. I never said, go love everything. I didn't say that. The judgment and the mind picks it up, because I did this all the time. It's like, are you telling me to love the things that, I don't want to love those things. I'm not saying love it or not love it. I'm saying that there isn't a person doing anything. Your space, your existence is that space. And it doesn't mean that you gotta love everything and say, no, that's the person talking. The person is saying, oh, I gotta love everything. or I gotta push. When there is no person, the space just is. And you're aware and you're naturally moving. And if this is, not a part of what you are wanting to experience, your flow will take you away. The flow works that way. And what I was saying, there are people in our lives or situations that come about that if the person is not there, that unconditional love that's you will flow in there without judgment. And you experience it the way you're meant to experience it. Just like the example I used for my foot. But I mean, there's situations that come and the people that are with you too in your life. For example, I had my son, 17, almost 18. He's been my biggest teacher to find myself. Because I couldn't get rid of him. I got rid of his dad. I couldn't get rid of him. I couldn't say, nope, that's it. You're done. Go away. I don't care what you do. But he was the one that showed me all the fears I had inside. He's the one that showed me my biggest one, my biggest character in the movie, my mom character. And boy, when that mom character put on her costume, oof, she was like full of fear, full of control, full of, I need to protect him, I need to protect me, who do I protect? And that mom character, but what started for me to see this mom character was that I know this situation has presented itself to show me me. It's not about him. I'm not going to point the finger and say he's this, his that, his dad is this, his dad is that. That's why he's like that. He's just like his dad. This is me to me. What is it showing me? It's showing all my fears. It's showing me how I want to control life. It's showing me how I don't love myself. And that's when I started to, and there were times in that space of awareness, I'm sort of like, imagine like I'm here, my son is going off on one of his things, and inside I'm like this. The outside is like, but I'm inside, I'm like, oh, look at that mom character go. My God, she has lost it right now. We gotta just watch this thing go. And when she calms down, we'll go in there and see what's going on. So inside, that's what the awareness was at the beginning. It was just me in this physical form like this, looking at this physical being that just totally was Zen a minute ago, and her son took her out of that Zen, and she's like, all right, okay. That's how it was. Yes?
Do I understand when you say if you're meditating, the space before the thought would be as simple as being aware of your breath or your heartbeat? Am I interpreting that right?
So meditation has a trick to it. And that trick is, who is meditating? Is a person meditating because they want to achieve something. They want to get to a place. So if meditation is happening because I want a certain experience, I want to get to a certain point, it's okay. I'm not saying don't meditate. Meditate by all means. It's going to add a lot of benefits, but be aware of the character, the person that's meditating. Because as being, as existence, you're 24/7 active. Because the space is. You are being. I don't need a meditation to get here. So just be aware. All you need to do Be aware of the person. The person is a character in a movie. The person has desires, wishes, fears, things they want to do, things they want to control, things they don't want to happen. Just be aware of the person. We're not saying you see the person, shoot them away, go away. No, they don't need to be fixed. The person, there's nothing wrong with the person. The person doesn't need to be fixed. If you're fixing, the judgment is telling you, the mind is telling you. That's where then that awareness takes this person that's going, it's going to calm down. It's going to calm down. Yes.
So just as we have the characters that we play, how does it, how do you see it fitting in when you like put a character on your partner or your family members, that kind of thing?
So they have their own character. So what I talk to in relationships is everybody's got to take ownership of themselves, their responsibility. The biggest thing, it's funny, so I work with like a wife or husband that has come to me, and then the wife comes for a little bit, and then they say, you know, can we do a couples thing? Or the husband comes. I always explain this. So this is not a couples counseling, or even with moms and kids. It's not a counseling where I say, you listen to this and this has nothing to do with that. This is how you're gonna go in there, and if you point the finger back at them, that finger comes back at you. And you say, okay, they're showing me something in me. Thank you, I take responsibility. I own this, you own that. You go take care of your stuff, I'm taking care of my stuff. And you don't put it on the other one, because that's what happens in relationships, whether it's mom and child, husband, wife, whatever, is that we try to put our stuff on somebody else, or they take their stuff, and that's when all this back and forth happens. And it's all, if I take you down, you'll see it, it's all rooted in fear. We're still good, I think. Oh, what time is it? Oh, I think we still have a couple more minutes. Any other questions, comments? Yes?
Maybe this is not quite the right sort of question, but you're talking in a language that's partly like internal family systems. So I'm just wondering if your work is grounded in one of the sort of like schools of psychological training, or if it's sort of you invented it.
The only certifications I've gone, the only training I've gone through long time ago, before I quit my engineering job, because I was always interested in this stuff. It was my master's healer certificate, and then my shamanic training. But everything else has been just through my own work on myself, the tools I came up with. And some of the tools, honestly, I use, and then I find out, it's like, oh, there's a name to this that I've been doing. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If you guys, I'm out there in one of those exhibit halls. I'm in booth number 43. You'll see my artwork. They're big. If you wanted to stop by, the book, if you were interested in, goes into details about those things. It's online, ebook, paperback, and audiobook. And and there's some, my cards are there. If you wanted, there's some here. There's some on my booth if you wanted to grab one. But and I have a podcast that it's just a solo that I give guidance on there as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.